Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Star Wars Legion has a brand new edition, and we're going to talk about Legion 2.0 in this video. Now, Mini Stravaganza has passed us. We got hit with lots of news. In addition to this major overhaul of Star Wars Legion, there's also a whole lot of new expansions and new units and great, exciting new things that are on the horizon. That I'm going to talk about in a separate video, and I want to focus this video largely on what you need to know about the second edition of Star Wars Legion under Atomic Mass Games. Starting with this new logo that we have right here, which is basically the new faceplate of Legion 2.0. This is basically the first step in a whole new art style and a complete rebranding of the game that is going to, I would say, slowly roll out over the next year, but it's immediately live. So it's immediately live, and it's going to have continued rollout over the next year. Some of the next couple expansions we're going to see are still going to be in the old art style, but we're going to take a look at the new art style. We're going to talk about some of the most important rules changes that you need to know, and of course I will direct you to where you can get the latest rules documentation. One of the big reasons for this change is that it's going to be multilingual. So you're going to, similar to what you've seen in Star Wars Shatterpoint, you're going to get cards that are going to be available in multiple different languages, and that's something that they're going to do. Star Wars Legion product SKU numbers that used to start with SWL and a number after them, like SWL 104, etc., are now going to start with SWQ. That's one of the things that they're going to be doing with this new edition. So I want to talk about a lot of different things about this new edition, and we're going to start with the fact that the core rulebook, even though like AMG has said that this is not a new edition, it absolutely is. It's currently actually 2.6.0. I think they just threw the 6 in there kind of randomly. It's definitely it's a 2.0 though, and that's what the community is calling it. That's what I'm going to call it. And it was dropped on us and said it goes live immediately, like very next day, which was a very strange way to throw a monkey wrench into every grand tournament and tournament system that's happening within like that same weekend and then the next weekend and so on and so forth, which is super crazy way to drop a whole new edition on everybody. And it's definitely a whole new edition, even though we're not supposed to call it a new edition. It's 100% a new edition, because just about everything has changed about the game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I want to talk about it. Also, I do want to remind you guys, if you're new here to the channel, we do giveaways all the time. There's currently a $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. This is going to run for about another week, and we'll be announcing the winner at the end of one of my videos. So make sure you're subscribed, and let me know what you think in the comments below, and check links in social media. And you can also join our Discord to keep the discussion going there as well. So first off, there's a whole new, like, all the battle cards are thrown out. So this is the first thing. We're going to talk about like the turn 0 stuff. Deployments are completely different, and you're going to start off deploying on your side of the board, mostly similar to how battle line and advanced positions would kind of have you starting mostly on your side of the board. Here's like 3 different examples. Most of the battle cards look like what you see here with intercept signals or recover the research. The only one that kind of stands out as being the most different is close the pocket, which it was similar to disarray, except you're not in the opposite corner. None of these have you having to walk around the table to the other side anymore, and so this is largely seen as something that has a positive side to it, but also it sort of homogenizes the game a little bit, because a lot of the deployments are going to feel very, very similar, except for one key aspect is, while the blue and red areas respectively apply to the red and blue players' territory, you don't actually deploy in those zones under normal circumstances. You deploy off the board with your base touching the edge that is one of those. So instead of actually putting my miniature in that blue zone, I put my miniature off the board, just kind of touching the corners of one of those places, which is going to be kind of difficult for the higher activation count, because the game is at 1,000 points now with no change to organizational structures and a reduction in points for a lot of units. So they definitely want you putting more stuff on the table, and you're gonna run out of places. I haven't. I'll say this: At the time of recording this video, I haven't played a game in this new format yet. I know some people have. I am playing soon in the next couple of days, so I'm gonna withhold some judgment here because I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also nervous about this whole rule set because it represents so much change. Instead of the normal mission cards, like we showed you before, you're going to have deployment and mission on the same cards. Those are going to be your mission objectives there. But you do have this new mission dashboard setup where the game is basically played over 5 turns, although really 4 because the first turn you're starting off the board. So your first turn is you kind of entering the battlefield. Turns, and in turns 2 through 5 are the only turns that you can score on. So, but it's going to be the first player to 12 victory points. And you're going to earn victory points through those objectives and also through secondary objectives. Most of the objectives are kind of area control, either contest a point or to secure a point, which is to contest is to just have somebody that's there. Even if your opponent has it, whereas secure means have the most people there, and now this is yours. And so, it seems in those tend to score you 2 or more victory points, depending on how many of the objectives you're contesting. And they all seem to be about that way. Some of them are, contest. Some of them are secure. Some of them are keep your opponent from contesting. So they're all very much area control. The secondary objectives that you're going to have are going to be a little bit different. Those are a little bit more about shooting somebody or keeping somebody alive, or putting suppression on your opponents. So those are a little bit more, shooty, stabby objectives. And you're going to pick 3 objectives, 3 secondary objectives, and 3 advantages. You're going to make a deck of 9 cards, and there is a veto system. So you'll roll off for blue player. Bidding is gone. You roll off for blue player. Blue player goes first. He'll reveal one. He's going to be, all right, boom, here's my objective. Okay. There's an objective map that goes along with each objective, and so they didn't put them on the back of the card because there is a shuffle mechanic to these decks. But then the red player will reveal one for, for something that hasn't been revealed yet. So maybe they'll go secondary objective, and then the blue player will reveal, then they'll reveal their advantages as well. And then there's a veto system where each player gets 2 options to veto. You can do something like you can pass, do nothing, or you can say, you know what, I don't want that one, get that one out of here, and then whichever player it is flips over their next card in their deck. If for some reason all cards in a deck are gone, then they'll just reshuffle and create a new deck with it. But basically, you have the veto systems that you had before, but you don't know what's coming next. So there's definitely some randomness in there. Although if you know what cards you put in your deck, then it won't, and then your opponent vetoes one of yours, and then you veto one of your own, then you know what else is coming. So that's certainly a possibility. Now, advantages are going to be good things, like you can call an air support or an airstrike that's going to do suppression, or maybe drop a bomb somewhere or something like that. And a lot of times those are like once per game abilities that'll happen. You can choose when they happen, or sometimes they happen at the very start of the game. So there's a whole different game that happens at the beginning. At the end of any round, whoever has 12 points and also has more than their opponents, so like in other words 12 and not tied, will be the winner. If that happens before turn 5, you can win potentially at the end of turn 3 or 4. It's possible. If not, at the end of turn 5, whoever has the most victory points wins. If it's a tie there, then you go to whoever has the most destroyed points wins, and if it's a tie there, then it's a tie game. So still victory point game, but considering that victory points are going to be in such high volumes now, as opposed to like 1, 2, or 3, like it may have been under the old system, things like secret mission, while they're still in the game, aren't as important. So that is the big change. You also have a half range maneuver tool. This is not maneuver tool, but half range distance tool. It's a 3-inch tool. There's a print and play for it on the website, or you can just cut a maneuver tool in half or just measure 3 inches. This one's used for unit cohesion. Used to have all of your guys had to be within a 1-speed move of each other. Well, now it's 3 inches of each other. It's slightly shorter, but not that much. And then there's also the new objective tokens are 2-inch circles. So they're kind of big. They're bigger than any token you have. So you're going to have to actually cut these out, get these printed yourself for right now until these come out in new core sets, which won't be out until next year. And I really wish they would have kind of made product available when the new rule set was going to launch, so people don't have to play a beautiful game on paper. But that's, you know, that's fine. That's fine. Let's. I said I was going to withhold judgment. Let's withhold judgment. Although that part I didn't withhold. I think it'd have been nice if there was a product to launch alongside the new rule set. You know, that's just me. Again, and have print and play as an option too. That's fine. Let's talk about the art style and the changes. So, a lot of big changes. Almost every card has been revamped. I'd say probably at least 60 to 70% of the cards have been revamped so far. They're all available to download from Atomic Mass Games. You can print and play them right now. Tons to talk about with this. Not only is the art style changed, a lot of the keywords on a lot of cards have been changed. Some more significantly than others. Anakin Skywalker, major overhaul, not just to his character, but also his command cards. Luke Skywalker, major overhaul. Rebel Troopers, not a major overhaul, but I've included them in this graphic here to point out that core troopers have been given a new type of upgrade that can go in the personnel slot, and that is basically a big expensive one, like in this one is 45 points. It adds 5 miniatures, so basically you can kind of double the size of any core unit. This also happens to work with things like Ewoks and B1 battle droids, which give even more. And a number was thrown out. You can have over 100 B1s in a game if you're running like the Separatist Invasion and maxing out every B1 battle droid unit. It becomes very expensive to max out a core unit because you're adding so many crazy things. If you're also adding a Z6 in there and trying to see how many dice you can throw, it can get very, very crazy. And that's pretty interesting. Now, considering that also fire support has been changed, so you're not adding dice pools with fire support anymore. So it kind of balances out because a lot of people would use fire support, especially with clones, but also with like Rebel veterans and the mortars for Empire. And things like that. Fire support has changed. You're not adding a fire support dice pool to another attack anymore. Outside of Rex can do that. Snowtroopers, I included them here as well because both Snowtroopers and Stormtroopers had their melee attacks reduced to help make way for Riot Troopers, presumably. But upgrade cards also, as a whole, upgrade cards have had their art removed. I don't know if this is going to stay this way forever or if this was just something they did for the moment. But yeah, upgrade cards no longer have art on them at all, even though they did art for everything else. I don't know if this was a cost-saving measure or making it easier for print and plays. But for the most part, upgrade cards, you know, they talked a little bit about how the multilingual, some languages had more words than others, and they wanted to be able to fit more, you know, complex language on the cards. But also when it's a heavy weapon, like your Flame Trooper, for example, you can slide them underneath the card, and you don't necessarily have to have the full art showing anymore. So that's one of the possible ways you can make use of this. Now, also, these upgrade cards are like full-size standard upgrade cards. Now, they're not the little micro mini cards anymore. So when these new upgrade card packs, and they are going to do upgrade card packs around this time next year, so you'll be able to get all this stuff. You don't have to just print and play forever. You'll be able to buy upgrade card packs. You'll be able to buy the new card packs. And then they'll also release like new upgrade card packs in the future, so it's a way for them to do upgrade cards, and that's it. I think that's great. Again, I said withholding judgment. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if those upgrade card packs end up being great or not, but I do love the idea of that. So lots of changes to the graphic style. It's huge. Let's talk about passing. Passing was something that you used to be able to do. You could pass like once if you had less activations. They've changed that altogether. Now, at the beginning of the round, you're going to be creating a pass pool. You're basically going to say who's got the most, who's got the most activations. You've got 10 activations. I've got 7 activations. That's a difference of 3. I subtract 1 from it, and I have 2 pass tokens. Those pass tokens are going to be the old condition tokens. They're calling them advantage tokens now. And that can change from round to round. If I might kill like 3 or 4 of your units, and then next round we're going to, passing will have changed. The dynamic will change, but you're going to measure that at the start of the round. Now, that's a big change to the game. It really removes the advantage of having a whole lot of guys. But there's a couple of restrictions there. You can't pass twice in a row. Well, you can't use an advantage token to pass twice in a row. You can, if you pull an order from the order pool, if you're pulling from the pile, and you happen to get somebody who's dead, and then you can't use this token, then you get a pass for that. But you won't, or otherwise you could just spend an advantage token to pass if you want to. However, you can't spend an advantage token to pass if you passed on the previous turn. So usually you're not going to be able to pass twice. Usually whoever's got the most activations is still going to be able to go last, but most likely they'll only be able to have the one final activation. They won't be able to just, have like 6 activations in a row. Unless they're completely destroying you and you're down to like 1 or 2 activations. So passing that's interesting, and it will be dynamic. It will change throughout the game. Let's talk about cover. A lot of changes to cover. There's been a lot of changes to the game that make it feel a little bit more like Warhammer. I play Age of Sigmar, and I'm seeing a lot of these things. The 1,000 points. The cover rule is treated as a whole extra save now. Then there's a lot of changes. You can't be out in the open and your opponent's out in the open and he's firing at you and there's a barricade 3 feet away from you that just happens to cross the line. No, you got to be you have to be close to the barricade. It's all covered in there. And you also have to you're not getting guaranteed saves anymore. So you're going to look at the number of hits that are rolled. If you have light cover, you're going to roll a white die for every hit that's there. Now, crits are still going through, so crits are still, just as great as they always were. But the number of hits that are, in the attack pool, so if your opponent is attacking you with a big dice pool, and they're going to be bigger dice pools with core doubling in size and things like that. There's going to be big dice pools. Maybe your opponent rolls 8 hits against you. You then roll 8 white dice for every block. That cancels a hit result. That's with light cover. If you have heavy cover, you're also going to count surges there. So you'll roll 8 white dice or however many hits there were. And for every block and surge, you will cancel a hit result. Then after that's over, then you get to, hey, you can apply dodge. You can spend dodge tokens. And then you will roll your normal defensive roll. So it's an extra save that goes in there. And that sounds very similar to Warhammer, to ward saves or rolling to hit and rolling to wound and things like that. So it's an extra chance. Now, if you're doing the math, a lot of times this is slightly less good than cover would normally be. Although low profile still works with this. Low profile will basically give you 1 automatic block in there. So you roll 1 less die than you normally would have, but you automatically add a block to the pool. So you're canceling 1 hit with low profile, but you're rolling 1 less die to, so it's an automatic one. So low profile is good. But yeah, that's still a pretty interesting system. And if your white dice are as crazy as my opponent's white dice tend to be, it has a higher ceiling of potentially blocking everything. And I just fear that units like Jin Urso and Rebel Pathfinders are going to be so much harder to kill, especially when you tack on this next rule, which is another thing pulled almost straight out of Warhammer, called backup. Although Warhammer called it Look Out, Sir. This is another way for leaders or somebody like Jin Urso to never die. Kind of. It's potentially. Of course, it won't always work out this way, and there's ways to mitigate it for sure. So basically, if you've got a hero unit, or basically a commander or operative, and they're close to a core trooper unit, then they get to cancel 2 hits. Now, there's a couple of things about this. They have to be a core, and they have to be a trooper unit, and they also can't be suppressed. Now, the attack also has to be from range 2 or farther away. But there are a couple of other things to keep in mind with this rule, that if you have entourage, if you have an entourage trooper unit, then they can also give you backup. So if Palpatine's got his Royal Guard right there, then they can give him backup. Or if you have retinue, they can also give you the backup. So if Sabine Wren is there with Clan Wren, then they can also give her backup. So it doesn't only have to be a core. The main rule is core, but retinue and entourage and other things let you do that. But canceling 2 hits is awesome. So there's lots of ways to help keep those commanders alive. Of course, if you're going against this, a strategy may be, well, let me apply a lot of suppression to everybody, and then everybody's hitting the dirt. They're not going to be able to say, look out, sir. So they're not going to be able to provide backup, which is kind of interesting. Again, I'm withholding judgment on this. I don't know how much this is going to impact things. It could be interesting, could be crazy, could punish a Darth Vader for running, force burst of speed and running far ahead. Who knows? Vehicles have seen their share of changes. A lot of changes are happening with vehicles. Let's talk about some of the vehicle changes. Now, armor has been reduced. Nothing that I've seen so far has full-blown armor, although they still have full-blown armor as a possibility. Makes me think that maybe we're going to see an AT-AT at some point. But big vehicles now are largely reduced to armor 5, with slightly smaller vehicles having armor values reduced. Yes, AT-RTs no longer have full-blown armor anymore. They're going to be a lot easier to kill, unfortunately. But I used to love to, have AT-RT cheese. But no, vehicles can also contest objectives now, which is a big change. Vehicles cannot benefit from cover provided by terrain. And so that's a big deal. So you're not going to have an AT-RT hiding behind a cliff that manages to get heavy cover from it anymore. However, vehicles that have cover built in will still be able to get that cover. So you see your snow speeders and stuff like that that have cover 1 are still going to be able to get that. So that's going to be interesting because it could be some extra saves on a vehicle that has reduced armor, and maybe that Rebel land speeder is going to have a slightly bigger survivability. That is a thing. Well, let me also talk about transport. Transport has changed. The AA5 speeder truck has seen its share of nerfs. There's also a ban list, and reckless driver is gone, and force lift is gone, and so I feel bad for AA5 because the reckless driver has gone away. Transport has been changed significantly. Now you can only transport a corps or special forces. They have to start on board the transport, and they get to issue, the transporting unit gets to issue them an order token at the beginning of the game, but they have to deploy from the transport. They have to disembark basically right away. So it's almost treated like a Scout 1. They have to disembark with a 1-speed move. So it's kind of more or less like a Scout 1. Can get them a little bit farther ahead because it's before they move, and then they also start with an order token, so it gets them out there a little bit, but it doesn't mean, it means you can't take your vehicle, do a move, and then a shoot or something like that, and then have your unit disembark in the middle of the battlefield. You're not going to be able to do that anymore. Some units have had transport removed completely, like the Rebel land speeder, for example. Transport is similar to some other new keywords that allow you to get a little bit farther ahead, so not everybody has to kind of start off the board. Scout still lets you take that move from the board's edge, so you still get to start a little bit farther ahead. And then there are other keywords like infiltrate has been changed so that you have to deploy in your deployment zone. There's also prepared positions, which is a new keyword that is going to show up on certain units. Rebel veterans got changed to have prepared positions. A couple of other units will have that. Basically, they deploy in friendly territory and gain a dodge token. So they're deploying a little farther ahead. I'll note that Rebel veterans also have their speed reduced to 1. So while they can start farther ahead, they don't get the movement that they used to have previously, which is definitely interesting. Now, there's also detachments. Rebel veterans already have their Mark IIs, and then, of course, shore troopers, same thing. They have those mortars that are detachments of them. Detachments are going to also gain the prepared position or infiltrate, if applicable. They're going to gain those keywords of their parent unit. And detachments also don't count against the maximums for that rank, which means you can run 6 Rebel veterans and 6 Mark IIs and still only, go up to, you're still not counting against the 6 core units. However, they do still count towards minimums. So if you have 1 Rebel veteran and 1 Mark II as its detachment, you only need to add 1 more core to meet your minimums. So you can still, it still counts for minimums, but doesn't count against the maximums. That's an interesting thing about detachments. This also applies to Rebel Commandos. They've been changed, right? If you're running a strike team, they're now a detachment. So you can only have a strike team per full Rebel Commando unit. But that also means you could run 6 snipers. You could run a Rebel Commando unit, sniper full unit, and then run Rebel Commando sniper strike team. That would mean you'd have to go out and buy 6 boxes of Rebel Commandos in order to do that. But hey, since they're reprinting Rebel Commandos, boom. Isn't that clever how they suddenly incentivize you to buy twice as many of the units that they're coming out with early next year. Very strange, very strange. I wonder what the motivating factors were behind these, and I wonder if they won't change the rules at some point after you've bought 6 Rebel Commandos and say, "Oh, you can no longer run 6 snipers after everybody bought it." I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Wouldn't surprise me though. All right, let's move on. There's plenty of other things that have changed. Let's talk about some other keywords and rule changes. Standby got an interesting change. And there's more. I'm only hitting some of the highlights. Standby, very interesting change. Now, the big change with standby is that the unit that triggers your standby is the only unit that you can attack. You can still move, but you can't. Basically, if I want to kill Luke Skywalker, but he's already activated, I can't. Like a Rebel Trooper came in, I can't just attack Luke Skywalker because standby has been triggered. I have to shoot who. If I'm going to shoot, I have to shoot who attacked him. That also means if I have charge, I could use standby to move, but if I move into melee with another enemy unit, if that's not the unit that triggered my standby, I can't, move and then get the free attack, because my only attacks can be towards who triggered my standby. Now, also, a more subtle distinction here is that I have to be triggering standby during my opponent's activation, so if I were to use force push, and force you to move, then I can't all of a sudden have everybody, start shooting you because I'm moving you during my activation. So it has to be your own conscious action that triggers my standby, and if I'm going to attack, you have to be the one that I attack. So that's an important thing, because I think that's probably a good change, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm trying to withhold some judgment here. Withdraw, this is a massive change. Withdraw used to be, it would consume your entire activation, and you got to do a speed 1 move away and couldn't move into another melee. While some of that is still the same, you cannot move into another melee, and it's a speed 1 move out of engagement, it no longer consumes your entire activation. It is only 1 action. This is a massive change to withdraw, because it means that now you can move out and then do a whole nother move. You cannot move out and attack unless, of course, you're a creature trooper. Creature troopers can still do that. But yeah, this is a big change, because especially if you're a fast unit or you have some kind of speed 3 thing, you can get to safety if you are about to be killed. But withdraw, run far away, you can do some crazy stuff. And you can't stand by. You can't back up and stand by. But that's pretty wild. One of the things I used to do, if I was afraid if you had disengage, I would move into melee and then I'd maybe take a standby. So if you tried to withdraw, then I would move back into melee with you again. But here, even if I do that, then you move away again. So it's unless of course you're suppressed and maybe only get 1 action, and then it might end up being a net 0. But withdraw is really nasty, combined with the fact that all these new objectives kind of really steer the game more towards area control. Having a tremendous movement advantage with withdraw here seems like it's going to impact the game tremendously. Tremendously. Grenades have seen a change. They can now only be thrown by a single miniature in the unit. So say goodbye to frag grenades being thrown by every single stormtrooper or rebel trooper or clone trooper in the unit. You're only getting that ability once. In the case of impact grenades, they did see an errata, however, to now have impact 4 as opposed to impact 1 per miniature. And that one seems good. But all the rest of the grenades are currently unchanged, however. Although the rest of those keywords seem to be a little bit more appropriate, like the attack pool gaining, surge to crit or what have you, which still fragmentation grenades are probably still my favorite. But yeah, impact grenades seem more reasonable now. It seems pretty cool. All right, let's also talk about, look, there's some faction-specific stuff I want to talk about a little bit. Clones saw a massive change. Both Phase 1 and Phase 2 clone troopers got merged into new clone trooper infantry. They have reliable 1 now, and they can be kind of outfitted however you want them to be. New clones that will be coming out in the future will have both Phase 1 and Phase 2 helmets, so you can kind of build them however you want. They still have the same ability to double their unit size with that, if you want to take that expensive, personnel upgrade. Every core trooper just about has that. So that's a cool thing that you can do. Clones also, because they're clone troopers, they gain a new exemplar ability, which, strange enough, Padme Amidala lost her exemplar, which was fun. So I don't know what you're going to do with her now. But clones now have range 2 and line of sight for being able to share their green tokens. Again, green tokens are just dodge, surge, and aim. Standby has not been a green token in quite a while. They changed the color of standby a long time ago, but okay, that's fine. I can understand why. But they can do it one time per attacking. So, but they have a little bit more range on it now, and that's built in there in the same way, and that's what Exemplar reads as now as well. So they get to do that. Also, clones have a new upgrade type. In addition to their other upgrade types, they have basically a clone trooper leader that can go in with this new. It's got the upgrade symbol is the clone trooper helmet. Only clone troopers have that right now. Who knows if other units are going to gain that in the future. But for the most part, you're picking a cheaper leader. Fives is currently the most interesting one because he's adding 3 dice as opposed to just adding 1 die because he's a single miniature. So Fives, and he's a little more expensive. The other ones do a little bit less, and they're also a little bit cheaper. But clones, again, can get very, very expensive here, especially if you're doubling the size of the clone unit, adding Fives as a special leader, and then adding a Z6, and then filling everything else out. You can roll egregiously large dice pools, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel so bad that fire support has been changed significantly and to basically not do what it did at all anymore. I think it just gives you a standby now. But all of the rules are going to be in the rule token or the rule update now. So yes, a lot of crazy stuff. AI is another one that I want to talk about. AI attack is, or AI anything, AI aim, AI move. AI almost doesn't exist anymore. AI only applies if you haven't been given an order token and you are beyond range 3 of a commander. That's it. If you're within range 3 of a commander, you can ignore AI now, which is massive. Now, it's hard to tell the true impact that this is going to have on the game, but initially it seems like B2s are going to be all over this. B1, and it was an interesting thing. I think there's going to be a lot of winners and losers here. I think the loser is going to be like that Separatist list that just has a T-series as their commander, and then he gets sniped and didn't plan for it, and then all of a sudden all those guys that he had plans for, that he was planning to move and attack, now they can't. And so, there's going to be some interesting things that happen as a result of this, because again, you don't nominate a new commander in the middle of a round, so yeah, you could still really suffer, but overall, this is a big boost to Separatists and to AI builds. It kind of renders the AI keyword almost null, because most of the time you're going to have your AI units within range 3. So that's massive. And there are a lot of other changes. A lot of units have seen changes. All of the new unit cards are all available at the Atomic Mass Games Star Wars Legion website. I will link down in the video description below, but hopefully that has brought you up to speed on Legion 2.0. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to play some and try and get a couple of games in and come back to you after maybe a couple of weeks and give you kind of all right, now that the dust is settled, what do we think? That will be coming. I will also be talking about all of the new hype as well as the hidden hype, because yes, they announced quite a few things, but there are other things that are hiding in plain sight that I'm going to include that in our other one. There's stuff that's confirmed that nobody's even talking about yet. Maybe you can guess. Because Gungans are definitely one of them, but there's more than just Gungans. We're going to talk about all of that in an upcoming video. Stay tuned. We'll keep talking Legion, and hopefully you guys enjoy what you see here. I'll talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing. The spice must flow. Keep it coming. Keep on dancing, and always wash your socks.